Arthur Conan Doyle, The Adventure of the Second Stain. I had intended The Adventure of the Abbey Grange to be the final entry in the series detailing the exploits of my friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. This decision was not due to a lack of material. On the contrary, I possess a massive collection of unpublished records concerning cases investigated by my friend. Nor was it due to a lack of interest, for the public continues to follow the work of the famous criminologist with great enthusiasm. The true reason lay with Holmes himself. He no longer wishes for his activities to be publicized. During his years of active practice, he welcomed the fame my stories brought him. However, he has since left London and his profession behind, retiring to a small farm in Sussex. He has devoted himself entirely to beekeeping, and he has come to view fame with deep distaste. Indeed, he has repeatedly demanded that I stop publishing these accounts. It was only with great difficulty that I obtained his permission for the story I now present. Holmes resisted for a long time, but I reminded him of a promise he once made, that this story could be told only once the principal actors had left the stage. That time has finally come. Furthermore, this case serves as a fitting conclusion because of its extraordinary international significance. Even though many years have passed, I must remain tactful. For reasons the reader will surely understand, I have omitted several specific details. It happened in the autumn, on a Tuesday. I shall not specify the exact year. Two men of European fame arrived at our modest rooms on Baker Street. The first was a man of stern appearance, with a hawk-like nose, eagle eyes, and an air of absolute command. This was none other than the illustrious Lord Bellinger, twice Premier of Great Britain. His companion was a dark-haired, elegant, and handsome man, still quite young, Trelawney Hope, the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs. Hope was widely regarded as the rising star of British politics. Our guests sat side by side on the small settee. Their weary, anxious faces made it clear that they had come on a matter of grave importance. The Premier gripped the ivory handle of his umbrella with thin, nervous fingers. His gaunt, ascetic face flickered with gloom as he looked from Holmes to me. The Foreign Secretary nervously tugged at his mustache with one hand while the other fumbled with the charms on his watch chain. He was the first to speak. "I discovered the loss today at 8 o'clock, Mr. Sherlock Holmes," he began. "I informed the Prime Minister at once, and, at his suggestion, we have come straight to you. Have you informed the police?" Holmes asked. "Oh, no, sir," the Prime Minister cried, quickly and decisively. "We have not informed the police, nor shall we ever do so. To involve the police is to invite publicity, and that is precisely what we must avoid." "But why, sir?" "Because the missing document is of immense importance. The publication of this paper could lead, at least in my estimation, to the most serious international complications. I do not exaggerate when I say that the peace of all Europe depends upon it. The search must be conducted in the strictest secrecy. If the secret cannot be kept, it would be better if the search were not made at all. For those who stole the letter did so specifically to make its contents known to the world." "Understand," said Holmes. "And now, Mr. Trelawney Hope, you would greatly oblige me by describing, as clearly as possible, the exact circumstances under which this vital document disappeared." "That is easily done, Mr. Holmes," the Foreign Secretary began. "The letter, which was from a foreign potentate, was received several days ago. It was of such immense importance that I did not leave it in my safe at the Foreign Office. Instead, I took it each evening to my home in Whitehall Terrace. I kept it in a locked dispatch box in my bedroom. I'm certain it was there last night. While dressing for dinner, I specifically opened the box and saw that the document was in place. But by morning, it had vanished. Where exactly was the box during the night? Holmes asked. It stood on my dressing table. I am a light sleeper, and my wife is the same. We are both prepared to swear that no one entered the room during the night. And yet, sir, the letter is gone. At what hour did you dine? At 7:30. And when did you go to bed? My wife had been to the theater. I waited for her return. We retired at 10:30. So, for 3 hours, the box was unattended. Yes, but no one is permitted to enter that bedroom except the maid and my personal valet. Both are trusted servants who have been with us for years. Besides, how could they have known that the box contained a document of such vital importance? Who else knew of the letter's existence? No one at all. Surely your wife knew. Holmes suggested. No, sir. I told her nothing of the matter until this morning, after the loss was discovered. The Prime Minister nodded approvingly. I have long known, sir, he said, that you take your duties with the utmost seriousness. You are quite right. Great state secrets must not be shared, even with those closest to us. The Foreign Secretary bowed slightly. I believe I have earned that praise. I did not breathe a single word to her. Could she have guessed its existence? Holmes asked. Not in any way. Nor could anyone else have guessed it, Mr. Holmes. But who in England did know of the letter? The matter was brought before the cabinet yesterday. But as you know, cabinet meetings are shrouded in the deepest secrecy. Furthermore, the Prime Minister specifically warned every minister that the secret must be kept. Trelawney Hope tried to remain calm, but his composure broke. Despair filled his face as he clutched his head in his hands. My God, he cried, to think that this letter is gone. For a brief moment, his true nature, passionate and impulsive, was revealed. But he quickly regained control, pulling on his aristocratic mask once more. Aside from the cabinet, he continued softly, only 2 or 3 high-ranking officials at the department know of it. Beyond them, no one in England has heard a word. And abroad? No one abroad knows, except perhaps the person who wrote it. In fact, I am certain that his own ministers, I should say, the letter was sent in a strictly unofficial capacity. Holmes leaned back, thinking for a moment. Now, sir, I must know exactly what this document is, and why its disappearance could lead to such grave consequences. The 2 ministers exchanged a quick glance. The Prime Minister's thick brows darkened. Mr. Holmes, he said, the envelope was long and narrow, made of light blue paper. It bore a seal of red wax with a device of a crouching lion. The address was written in a large, bold hand. These details, Holmes interrupted, are no doubt interesting, but they are not what I asked. I must know the contents of the letter. That is a state secret of the highest order, and I fear I cannot share it with you. Nor do I see the necessity. I have been told that you possess extraordinary powers of detection. If that is true, you'll find the envelope I have described. The government will reward you handsomely. You may name your own fee. Sherlock Holmes rose from his chair with a cold smile. You gentlemen, he said, are among the busiest men in the country. I too am quite busy. I deeply regret that I cannot be of assistance in this matter. To continue this conversation will be a waste of everyone's time. The Prime Minister sprang up from the settee. A flash of anger burned in his deep-set eyes. I'm not accustomed, sir, he began, but he checked himself and sat back down. For a full minute, we all sat in silence. Finally, the old statesman shrugged his shoulders. Very well, he said. We must accept your terms, Mr. Holmes. It is foolish to ask for your help if we are unwilling to trust you. I am entirely in agreement with you, sir, the younger minister said. Lord Bellinger continued, I rely upon your discretion, Mr. Holmes, and yours as well, Dr. Watson. Beyond that, I appeal to your sense of patriotism. You must understand that our country faces the gravest of perils if this secret is revealed. You may trust us implicitly, Sherlock Holmes replied. The letter was received from a foreign potentate, the Prime Minister explained. This sovereign was displeased by a territorial acquisition we made in a certain colony. He wrote the letter personally, in a moment of impulse and without consulting his own ministers. We have made inquiries. His ministers know nothing of it. Unfortunately, the letter is drafted in a most regrettable manner. Certain phrases are practically a challenge. If this letter were published, English public opinion would be inflamed, dangerously so. I do not exaggerate when I say that its publication could plunge us into a devastating war. Holmes scribbled a single name on a slip of paper and showed it to the Prime Minister. Precisely, the Premier said. He is the author. This letter, sir, could cost thousands of millions of pounds and the lives of hundreds of thousands of men. And yet, this is the document that has vanished in such a mysterious fashion. Have you informed the author of its loss? Yes, sir. I have sent a cipher telegram. Is it possible he wants the letter to be published? Oh, no. We have strong reasons to believe he deeply regrets his action. He sees now that he acted rashly. The exposure of this secret would be as disastrous for him as it would be for us. But in that case, Holmes asked, who stands to gain from its publication? For surely it was stolen specifically to be made public. Here, Mr. Holmes, we enter the delicate world of international politics. Look at the balance of power in Europe, and you will easily see the motive. The continent is an armed camp. Two alliances of equal strength stand face to face. Great Britain maintains her neutrality. Now, imagine if Great Britain were dragged into a war with one of these powers. The other side would immediately gain total dominance. Do you follow me? I follow you perfectly. The enemies of the letter's author stole it to force a quarrel between him and England. Exactly so. And to whom would the letter be delivered? To the government whose interests the thief serves, of course. Even as we speak, the letter is likely racing across the ocean on a steamer toward its destination. Trelawney Hope bowed his head and let out a heavy groan. The Prime Minister placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. It cannot be helped, my dear fellow. It is a great misfortune, but no one can blame you. You took every precaution. Now, Mr. Holmes, I have given you all the facts. What do you advise? Holmes shook his head grimly. You say, sir, that war is inevitable if this letter is published. I believe it is. In that case, sir, Holmes replied, prepare for war. That is a hard saying, Mr. Holmes, the Premier cried. But consider the facts, sir, Holmes continued. It is unthinkable that the letter was stolen after 10:30, once Mr. Trelawney Hope was already in the room. Therefore, it must have been taken yesterday between 6:30 and 10:30, likely closer to 6:30. The thief knew exactly where the letter lay and moved to secure it as quickly as possible. So, that is the one, sir. Now, where is the document now? With the thief. Certainly not. A thief of this caliber would have handed it over immediately to those who required it. How then can we recover it? We cannot. It is currently beyond our reach. The Prime Minister rose from the settee. Your logic is relentless, Mr. Holmes. I see now that the cause is lost, he said gloomily. Suppose, Holmes went on, that the letter was taken by a valet or a maid. but they are both old and proven servants. From your description, your bedroom is on the second floor. It is impossible to enter it from the street. Therefore, the thief entered from within. Someone in the household took that letter. Now, the question is, to whom did the thief give it? Naturally, to an international spy. I know that crowd well. There are 3 principal agents of that kind in London. I shall begin my search with them. If any one of these gentlemen is found to be missing, we shall know exactly where the letter has gone. But wait, Trelawney Hope exclaimed. Why would a spy disappear? He would simply take the letter to an embassy here in London and then return to his home. I think not. These spies work independently, and their relations with the embassies are always strained. The Prime Minister nodded in agreement. You are right, Mr. Holmes. A thief would surely wish to deliver such a precious document in person. You have devised an excellent plan of action. Come, Hope, we must go. Great as this misfortune is, we cannot neglect our other duties. I trust, Mr. Holmes, that you will notify us the moment you learn anything of importance. With a grave bow, the statesman departed. Holmes lit his pipe and sank into deep thought. I opened the morning paper and began to read. Every column was filled with news of a sensational crime committed the previous night. Suddenly, Holmes let out a loud exclamation. He sprang from his chair and set his pipe upon the mantelpiece. Yes, there is only one way, he cried. The situation is desperate, but not hopeless. If only I can identify the thief. As for the letter itself, there are strong reasons to believe he has not yet had time to pass it on. In the end, when dealing with such people, it is all a matter of money, and I have the entire British treasury at my disposal. If the letter can be bought, I will buy it, even if I have to raise the income tax by a penny to do so. Perhaps the spy is holding the letter, waiting for the highest bidder. But who could have it? There are only 3 men in London capable of such a daring venture: Oberstein, La Rothiere, and Eduardo Lucas. I shall see them all. I looked down at my newspaper and asked, "Is it the Eduardo Lucas who lives in Godolphin Street?" "Yes," Holmes replied. "Then you will not see him." "And why not?" "Because he was murdered in his own rooms last night." My friend had astonished me so often during our acquaintance that I felt a genuine sense of satisfaction at seeing how deeply my news had staggered him. He stared at me in utter bewilderment, then snatched the paper from my hands. He began to scan the report I had just been reading. The headline was printed in bold, dark letters: "Murder in Westminster. A mysterious murder was committed last night at number 16, Godolphin Street. The crime took place in an ancient, century-old house on a quiet street between the river and the Abbey, almost under the shadow of the Houses of Parliament. This small, aristocratic residence was leased several years ago by Mr. Eduardo Lucas, a name well known in London society. Mr. Lucas was a man of charming personality, a well-known connoisseur of music, and the possessor of a beautiful tenor voice. Mr. Lucas was 34 years of age and unmarried. His household consisted of an elderly housekeeper, Mrs. Pringle, and a valet named Mitten. The former retired early and slept on the top floor of the house. The valet, however, spent the fatal night in Hammersmith visiting a friend. From 10 o'clock onwards, Mr. Lucas was alone in the house. What exactly transpired during that time is not yet clear. However, at 11:15, Police Constable Hurst, while patrolling Godolphin Street, noticed that the front door of number 16 was standing wide open. He rang, but received no answer. Seeing the hall was lit, the constable entered and rang again. Still, there was no response. Upon entering the main room, he found it in a state of utter disorder. The furniture had been pushed into a heap, and a chair lay overturned in the center of the floor. Beside the chair, still clutching one of its legs, lay the body of the unfortunate master of the house. Mr. Eduardo Lucas had been stabbed through the heart with a knife or dagger and must have died instantly. It was later discovered that he had been killed with a curved Indian dagger, which had been taken from a trophy of old weapons on the wall. The bloodstained weapon was found lying on the floor. It appears that robbery was not the motive, as many valuable items in the room remained untouched. Mr. Eduardo Lucas was widely known and liked, and the news of his tragic death will be met with sincere regret by many. "Well, Watson, what do you make of it?" Holmes asked after a long pause. "It is an amazing coincidence," I replied. "Coincidence? Here is one of the 3 men in all of London capable of stealing that letter, and he meets a violent death on the very night the drama occurs. No, Watson, almost every fact points away from mere chance. You will not convince me otherwise. These 2 events are connected. They must be connected, and we must find the link. But the official police are already on the case." "Hardly. The police know only what happened in Godolphin Street. They know nothing of what occurred in Whitehall Terrace. Only we are aware of both events, and therefore, only we can trace the connection between them. Of the 3 suspects, Lucas was always the most likely. He lived in Westminster, just a stone's throw from Whitehall Terrace. The others, Oberstein and La Rothiere, live at the other end of the West End. It was far easier for Lucas to establish contact with the minister's servants. Mark my words, Watson, the timing of these events means everything. Now, who could that be?" The door opened, and Mrs. Hudson entered with a lady's card. Holmes glanced at it, raised his eyebrows, and passed it to me. "Ask Lady Hilda Trelawney Hope to step up," he said. And so, for the second time that day, our modest rooms were honored by a distinguished visitor. There entered the most beautiful woman in London. I had heard much of the extraordinary beauty of the youngest daughter of the Duke of Belminster, but no description could do justice to the reality. I had seen portraits, but they failed to capture her grace, her charm, and the perfect, classical lines of her figure. But on this autumn morning, it was not her beauty that struck us. Lady Hilda's face was pale and drawn. Her eyes shone with a feverish light. Her lips were set in a firm line. It was clear she was exerting every ounce of her will to maintain control. Terror was plain in her gaze as she paused in the doorway. "Was my husband here, Mr. Holmes?" "He was, madam," Holmes replied. "Mr. Holmes, I implore you, do not tell him that I have come here." Holmes bowed coldly and motioned for our guest to take a seat. "You place me in a very delicate position, my lady. Please sit down and tell me how I may serve you. However, I cannot make any promises until I know the facts." Lady Hilda crossed the room and sat with her back to the window. She was a woman of regal bearing, tall, graceful, and intensely feminine. "Mr. Holmes," she began, "I shall be perfectly frank with you, and I hope you will be the same with me. Between my husband and myself, there is complete mutual trust. There is only one thing he keeps from me, and that is politics. On that subject, he is eternally silent. He tells me nothing of his public life. But yesterday, I learned that a very distressing event had occurred in our home. A paper has gone missing. But what paper? It is a political matter, and so my husband refused to explain it to me. But I must know, Mr. Holmes. You understand? I must know. Aside from the politicians, you're the only one who knows the truth. I beg you to tell me what has happened and what the consequences might be. Tell me everything. Hide nothing in the name of your clients. I am acting in my husband's best interests. If only he could understand that, he would have told me himself. What is this paper? Madam, you asked me for the impossible, Holmes said. The lady drew a long, shivering breath and buried her face in her hands. I assure you, madam, that what you ask cannot be done. Your husband does not see fit to trust you with this secret. How then can I, his agent, do so? You have no right to expect such a confidence from me. You must ask your husband. I have asked him, she cried, and I have come to you as a last resort. I cannot speak plainly, Mr. Holmes, but you would do me a vast favor if you would answer but one question. And what is that question, madam? Tell me this. Is my husband's political career at stake? It is, Holmes replied. If this matter is not settled, the consequences may be most unfortunate. Ah, she cried, her breath coming in a sharp gasp. She looked like a person who had finally resolved a long and agonizing doubt. One more question, Mr. Holmes. When my husband first realized the loss, he let fall an incautious remark. I gathered that the loss of this letter might lead to trouble for the entire country. If he told you that, then I can confirm it is the truth. And what exactly would those consequences be? To that question, madam, I can give no answer. Then I shall trouble you no further. I am not angry with you, Mr. Holmes. I understand that you cannot be frank with me. But be just to me as well. Do not judge me for being concerned for my husband's welfare. Once more, I beg you, do not tell him that I was here. She paused at the threshold and looked back at us once more. Again, I saw that beautiful, haunted face, the frightened eyes, and the tightly compressed lips. Then she was gone. Holmes listened to the rustle of her silk skirts as she descended the stairs. When the hall door finally clicked shut, he turned to me with a smile. Well, Watson, he said, the fair sex is your department. Why did this beautiful lady appear? What was it she wanted? She explained her purpose clearly enough, I replied. Her anxiety is only natural. Perhaps, but what did you think of her manner, Watson? Did you see how hard she struggled to keep her composure? And the way she pressed those questions. Such persistence from a woman of a caste that is trained to hide all emotion. She was certainly very agitated. Notice that she claimed to be acting in her husband's interest, Holmes mused. She said it with remarkable earnestness. What did she mean by that? And did you catch her maneuver? She pointedly sat with her back to the light. She did not want me to read the expressions on her face. But she simply took the only vacant chair in the room. I protested. And yet, Holmes continued, the motives of women remain, for the most part, inscrutable. Remember that woman in Margate? I suspected her because of her agitation. And what did it prove to be? She was upset because she had forgotten to powder her nose. It is dangerous to build theories on such shifting sand as a woman's soul. Sometimes a trivial act points to a grave secret. Other times, their tears and grief mean nothing at all. A woman can weep as much over a lost hairpin as over a lost honor. Goodbye, Watson. What? You're going out? Yes, I intend to spend the morning in Godolphin Street with our friends from Scotland Yard. It is clear that the key to this riddle lies in the house of Eduardo Lucas, though for the moment I cannot see the path. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. You stay here on guard, my dear Watson. We may have more visitors. We shall likely lunch together. For the rest of that day and the two that followed, Holmes was intensely silent. Those who did not know him might have said he was in a sullen mood. He was constantly coming and going at odd hours. When at home, he did nothing but smoke incessantly, scrape discords on his violin, and sink into deep, impenetrable thought. He ate only at irregular intervals, snatching a sandwich when he felt like it, and he remained deaf to my questions. It was perfectly clear to me that things were not going well for my friend. He said nothing of the case, and it was only through the newspapers that I could follow the progress of the investigation. The police had arrested Lucas's valet, John Mitten, but he was soon released. While the coroner established that a crime had indeed been committed, the murderer remained unknown, and the motive was a complete mystery. The room where the death occurred was filled with valuables, yet not a single item had been stolen. Even the deceased's papers remained untouched. The police examined these documents with great care and discovered that Mr. Lucas had been a diligent student of international politics, collecting all manner of political gossip and rumors. He was a remarkable linguist with a vast correspondence, and his papers showed he was on excellent terms with politicians in many countries. However, his desk drawers revealed nothing of a sensational nature. Eduardo Lucas had many female acquaintances, and though he had engaged in several intrigues, they were all superficial and disorganized. He had no close female friends, nor any lasting attachments. The police established that he led a regular, almost blameless life in London. Why then had he been killed? It remained a baffling, seemingly unsolvable mystery. The arrest of the valet, John Mitten, had been a desperate move by the police. They felt they had to do something. But it was impossible to charge him. On the night of the crime, he had been with a friend in Hammersmith. His alibi was solid. Although Mitten had left Hammersmith early enough to reach Westminster before the murder, he explained his movements satisfactorily. He had walked part of the way, enjoying the fine evening air. He arrived in Westminster at midnight, only to be met by the tragedy. Mitten had been genuinely fond of his master. A few of Lucas's razors were found in his trunk, but the housekeeper confirmed they had been a gift from the master himself. Mitten had served Lucas for 3 years, yet whenever Lucas traveled to the continent, he never took the valet with him. Lucas would often spend 3 months at a time in France, leaving Mitten behind to guard the house in Godolphin Street. As for the housekeeper, she had heard nothing on the night of the murder. If the master had a visitor, he must have let them in himself. From the press reports, it seemed the crime would remain unsolved. Holmes likely knew more than the police, but he kept his knowledge to himself. Holmes did mention that Inspector Lestrade, who was leading the inquiry, was keeping him informed of every detail. On the 4th day, however, a long telegram from Paris appeared in the newspapers, finally lifting the veil. The Paris police have made a vital discovery, reported the Daily Telegraph. This revelation explains the tragic fate of Mr. Eduardo Lucas. Yesterday, a servant belonging to a lady living in a small villa on the Rue d'Austerlitz informed the authorities that her mistress, known as Madame Henri Fournay, had lost her mind. Medical examination has confirmed that Madame Fournay is suffering from a dangerous form of insanity. This lady returned on Tuesday from a journey to London, and there is reason to suspect she is connected to the Westminster tragedy. A comparison of photographs has revealed that Monsieur Henri Fournay and Mr. Eduardo Lucas were the same person. The deceased had been leading a double life in Paris and London. Madame Fournay, a Creole by birth, possesses a volatile and highly excitable temperament. In the past, she suffered from fits of jealousy that drove her to fury. It is now believed that the crime was committed during such a paroxysm of jealousy. Her movements on Monday are still being traced, but a woman closely resembling her was seen acting eccentrically at Charing Cross Station on Tuesday morning. It is assumed that after committing the crime in a fit of sudden madness, the woman was so terrified by her own deed that her mind gave way. She now remembers nothing of the past. Doctors hold little hope for her recovery. There are also reports of a woman matching her description standing in Godolphin Street, near the residence of Mr. Eduardo Lucas, on Monday evening. Holmes was at breakfast. I was reading the telegram aloud to him. When I finished, I asked, "Well, Holmes, what do you say to that?" Holmes rose from the table and began to pace the room. "My dear Watson," he said, "you are a long-suffering man. During these last 3 days, I have told you nothing. And do you know why? Because there was nothing to tell. Even this Paris telegram explains very little. But the murder of Lucas is surely settled. The murder is a mere episode, Watson, a triviality compared to our real task. We must find that letter and save Europe from war. In these 3 days, only one important thing has happened, and that is that nothing has happened. I receive reports from the government almost every hour. Everywhere in Europe, there is peace and quiet. This tranquility would not exist if that letter had reached its destination. The question remains, where is it? Who has it? Why is it being hidden? These questions beat against my brain like hammers. Is the death of Lucas and the disappearance of the letter truly a coincidence? Did he ever receive it? If he did, why was it not found among his papers? Could his mad wife have taken it? If so, the letter is in Paris in her house. But how can I search for it there without arousing the suspicion of the French police? This is a case where the law is not on our side. Everything is against us, Watson, and yet we must go on. The fate of a country is at stake. If I can bring this to a successful end, I shall consider my career brilliantly closed. Yes, this will be my last case. Mrs. Hudson entered and handed Holmes a note. He glanced at it and exclaimed, Lestrade has found something interesting. Get your hat. Watson, we are going to Westminster together. It was my first time seeing the scene of the crime. The house was tall, gloomy, and narrow-windowed, a solid, formal building typical of the 18th century. From one window, the friendly, bulldog-like face of Lestrade looked out at us. A tall constable opened the door, and Lestrade greeted us warmly in the hall. We entered the room where the crime had been committed. No trace of the tragedy remained, except for a hideous, irregular stain upon the carpet. The carpet was small, covering only the center of the floor. The parquet beneath was beautiful, old, and highly polished. Above the mantel hung a fine collection of weapons. It was from this trophy that the fatal dagger had been taken. Opposite the window stood a magnificent writing desk. The entire room, the paintings, the rugs, the wallpaper, spoke of the refined, perhaps even effeminate, taste of the late owner. "Have you seen the telegram from Paris?" Lestrade asked. Holmes nodded. "Our French brothers have hit the mark," said Lestrade. "It happened exactly as they say." She rang the bell. She must have come unexpectedly, or he would never have let her in. He was a cautious man, but he admitted her. You can't keep a lady standing in the street. She told him she had tracked him down at last. There were reproaches, one word led to another, and then she grabbed the dagger. He didn't go easily, though. All the chairs were pushed into a heap, and he was clutching the leg of one, clearly trying to ward her off. "Yes, Mr. Holmes, the case is as clear to me as if I had stood here and witnessed it myself." Holmes raised his eyebrows. "Then why did you send for me?" "Oh, for a different reason entirely. A small thing that I thought might interest you." "A trifle, really?" "It has nothing to do with the main facts." "And what is this trifle?" "Well, since the crime, everything in this room has been kept exactly as it was found. Nothing has been moved. A policeman has been on guard here day and night. This morning, after the inquest was over, the body was removed and we decided to have a thorough look around. Do you see this carpet? It is not nailed to the floor. We lifted it, and we found... Well, what did you find? Holmes's face had suddenly grown tense and alert. You could guess for 100 years and never get it, said Lestrade. Look at that blood stain on the carpet. There is a great deal of blood, and it must have soaked through, wouldn't you say? Naturally. Well, how will it surprise you when I tell you that the floor beneath that stain is perfectly clean? There isn't a trace of blood on the wood. Clean? How can that be? It seems impossible, but the fact remains. The floor is spotless. He lifted a corner of the carpet, and we saw that the parquet beneath the heavy stain was indeed perfectly clean. And look here, Lestrade added, the edge of the carpet is soaked. The blood should have left a mark on the floor beneath it. Seeing Holmes's astonishment, Lestrade chuckled. He was clearly delighted to have puzzled the famous criminologist. Now I shall explain this phenomenon to you, Lestrade said. There is a bloodstain on the floor, but it is not under the stain on the carpet. Take a look. He lifted the carpet from the other side, and there, upon the white square of the wood, we saw a large, dark red stain. What do you say to that, Mr. Holmes? It is very simple, Holmes replied. The stain on the floor was originally under the stain on the carpet, but the carpet has since been turned around. It is a small rug and easily moved. The official police, Mr. Holmes, do not require such an explanation. We already know the carpet was moved. It is obvious, as the stains do not match. My question is, who moved the carpet and why? Holmes remained dry and inscrutable, but I could tell he was struggling to suppress a surge of intense excitement. Tell me, Lestrade, he asked, has the constable been on duty in this room the entire time? Yes, he has not left his post. Then take my advice. Investigate this matter thoroughly, but do not question the constable in our presence. If you examine him alone, he is more likely to confess. Ask him how he dared to admit a stranger and leave them here unattended. Do not ask if he is guilty. Speak to him as if his guilt is already a proven fact. Tell him you know someone was here. Tell him his only hope for a pardon is a full and honest confession. Do exactly as I say. By St. George, I'll squeeze the truth out of him. Lestrade cried. He hurried from the room, and a moment later, the sounds of his booming voice reached us from the back of the house. Quick, Watson, quick! Holmes cried, his voice frantic. In that cry, all the man's demonic energy, usually hidden behind a mask of detached boredom, burst forth. He tore back the carpet and dropped to his knees, his fingers feverishly searching the squares of the parquet. As he pressed one specific square, it flipped up like the lid of a box. Beneath it lay a small, hollow space. Holmes thrust his hand inside, but then he let out a snarl of pure rage and disappointment. The hiding place was empty. Quick, Watson, put the carpet back. We managed to snap the lid shut and smooth the rug just as Lestrade's voice returned to the corridor. By the time he entered, Holmes was leaning carelessly against the mantelpiece, looking bored and suppressed a yawn. Forgive me for keeping you, Mr. Holmes. I can see you're tired of this business. You were right. The man has confessed. Come here, Macpherson. Tell these gentlemen about your inexcusable conduct. A tall constable, red-faced and repentant, entered the room. I assure you, sirs, I meant no harm. Last night, a young lady came to the door. She said she had mistaken the house. Well, I spoke with her for a bit. It gets lonely on a long watch, you know. And then, she was interested in the case. She'd read about the murder in the papers. She was a very fine lady, sirs, spoke so well and so kindly. I thought there was no harm in letting her have a look. But the moment she entered the room and saw the blood on the carpet, she fainted dead away. She lay there like a corpse. I ran to the kitchen for water, but she wouldn't come to. Then I ran to the tavern at the corner for some brandy, but by the time I returned, she had recovered and left. I suppose she was ashamed of her weakness and didn't want to face me. And what was the state of the carpet after she left? It was a bit ruffled, sir. You see, she fell right upon it, and as it isn't nailed down, it got moved. I just straightened it out again. Let this be a lesson to you, Macpherson, Lestrade said with great dignity. Now you see that I am not so easily fooled. I had only to glance at the carpet to know someone had been here. You were lucky, Macpherson, that nothing was taken, or I would have had your skin. I am sorry, Mr. Holmes, to have troubled you with such a trifle. I thought the mystery of the mismatched stains might interest you. It was indeed interesting, Holmes said. Tell me, Macpherson, did this lady visit only once? Yes, sir, only once. And who was she? I don't know her name, sir. She said she was a typist looking for work. She had the wrong address. A very beautiful lady, sir. A tall, handsome lady? Holmes pressed. Yes, sir, a very fine-looking woman. The constable replied. She came to me and said, Constable, please, let me have one look at the room. She pleaded so piteously, sir, that I hadn't the heart to refuse her. I thought there could be no harm in just a glance. And how was she dressed? Simply, sir, she wore a long cloak that reached down to her heels. At what hour was this? In the twilight, sir. They were just lighting the lamps when I came back with the brandy. Very good, said Holmes. Come, Watson, we have a far more important matter before us. We stepped out into the street, leaving Lestrade in the room. On the doorstep, Holmes paused, drew something from his pocket, and showed it to the constable. The man gasped in shock. My God! Holmes placed a finger to his lips, slipped the object back into his pocket, and hurried away. Splendid, he cried. The curtain is up, Watson, and the fifth act has begun. You may rest easy. There will be no war in Europe. The career of Sir Trelawney Hope is safe, and the Prime Minister will not have to face an international crisis. All we need now is tact and skill, and this story, which threatened the world, will end in nothing. I looked at my friend with pure admiration. You have solved it, then? Not entirely, Watson. There are points that remain dark, but we know enough that it will be our own fault if we do not learn the rest. We must go straight to Whitehall Terrace. A few minutes later, we were at the minister's residence. Holmes asked for Lady Hilda, and we were shown into an elegantly furnished morning room. Lady Hilda entered, her face flushed with indignation. Mr. Holmes, she cried, this is ungenerous of you. I beg you to keep my visit a secret. I do not wish my husband to know that I have meddled in his affairs. And yet, you compromise me by coming here. I am sorry, madam, but I had no choice. I have been commissioned to recover a certain letter, and I have come to ask you to return it to me. Lady Hilda sprang to her feet. The color drained from her face, leaving her as pale as death. She swayed, and for a moment I thought she would collapse. You insult me, Mr. Holmes. Come, madam, this tone is useless. Give me the letter. She rushed toward the bell-pull. The butler shall show you out. Do not ring, Lady Hilda. If you do, I shall be unable, despite my sincere desire, to settle this without a scandal. Give me the letter, and everything will be set right. Trust me, and I can manage it. Defy me, and it will be your ruin. She stood before us, proud and regal, her hand still on the bell-pull, her eyes searching Holmes's face. You are trying to frighten me, Mr. Holmes. It is not brave to come here and insult a woman. You think you have discovered something. What is it, then? Please sit down, madam. If you faint while standing, you may hurt yourself. I shall not speak until you are seated. Thank you. Mr. Holmes, I give you 5 minutes. I shall need only one. I know of your visit to Eduardo Lucas. I know that you gave him that letter. I know how you cleverly entered his house last night and recovered the document from beneath the floor. She stared at him, breathless and ghost-white. You are mad, Mr. Holmes. Stark, staring mad. Holmes drew the object from his pocket, the same one he had shown the constable. It was a photograph of Lady Hilda herself. I took this with me to Godolphin Street, he said quietly. The constable recognized the face instantly. Lady Hilda let out a heavy sob and sank back into her chair. Do not be distressed, my lady. The matter can still be mended. The letter is in your possession, and I have no wish to bring you trouble. My mission is simply to return that letter to your husband. Follow my advice and tell me the truth. It is your only safety. But the young woman's courage was extraordinary. Even now, at the brink of ruin, she refused to admit defeat. I tell you again, Mr. Holmes, that you are under a most extraordinary delusion, she said. Holmes rose and began to pace the room. I am sorry for you, Lady Hilda. I have done my best for you, and I see now that it has been in vain. He rang the bell. The butler appeared. Is Mr. Trelawney Hope at home? He will be here at 12:15, sir, the butler replied. Holmes glanced at his watch. 15 minutes. Very well, I shall wait. But the moment the door closed behind the butler, Lady Hilda was on her knees before Holmes, her beautiful face drenched in tears. Oh, spare me, Mr. Holmes. Spare me, she sobbed in a frenzy of despair. For the love of heaven, do not tell him. I love him so. It would kill me to cause him even a moment's pain, and this would break his noble heart. Holmes raised her and led her to a chair. I am glad, madam, that you have finally come to your senses. There is no time to lose. Where is the letter? She rushed to her writing desk, unlocked it, and drew out a long, bluish envelope. Here it is, Mr. Holmes. Oh, I wish I had never laid eyes upon it. We must return it, Holmes said urgently. But how? Quickly, quickly, we must find a way. Where's the dispatch box? In his bedroom. What luck! Quick, madam, bring the box here. A moment later, she returned with a small mahogany chest. How did you open it? Do you have a duplicate key? Yes, of course you do. Open it now. Lady Hilda drew a small key from her pocket, and the box was opened. It was stuffed to the brim with papers. Holmes thrust the blue envelope to the very bottom, snapped the lid shut, and hurried to return the box to the bedroom. Now we are ready, Holmes said as he returned. We have 10 minutes. I'm taking a great deal upon myself to shield you, Lady Hilda. You must repay me with absolute frankness. Tell me, what is the meaning of this strange business? I will tell you everything, she cried. I would rather have cut off my right hand than cause my husband grief. There is no wife in London who loves her husband more, yet I know he would never forgive me if he knew what I was forced to do. He is a man of spotless integrity. Help me, Mr. Holmes. My life and my happiness are at stake. Quickly, madam. Time is passing. Before I was married, I wrote a letter, an indiscreet, foolish letter. There was no real harm in it, but I knew my husband would see it differently. Our trust would have been shattered forever. Years passed, and I thought it was forgotten until this man, Lucas, told me he had found the letter and intended to give it to my husband. I begged for mercy. He said he would return my letter only if I brought him the blue envelope from my husband's box. How he knew of it, I cannot say. I suspect he had spies within the office. He assured me it would cause my husband no harm. Put yourself in my position, Mr. Holmes. What was I to do? You should have told your husband everything. I did not dare. If I refused Lucas, my happiness was gone. If I obeyed, I would be deceiving my husband. I chose the latter, for I understand nothing of politics. I did not realize my actions could lead to a global catastrophe. I took a wax impression of the lock, Lucas provided the key, and I carried the letter to Godolphin Street. And what happened there? I knocked as agreed. Lucas opened the door himself. I entered his study, but I left the hall door ajar, for I was terrified to be alone with him. I remember a woman standing near the door as I entered. The business was over in a moment. My letter was on the desk. He took the blue envelope and gave me my letter. At that instant, there was a noise at the door. Someone was coming. Lucas quickly snatched up the carpet, hid the letter beneath the floor, and smoothed the rug back into place. Then, something horrific happened. It was like a nightmare. I remember a dark, crazed face and a woman's voice screaming in French. I have not waited in vain. At last, I have caught you with her. There was a wild struggle. He held a chair to defend himself. She had a knife gleaming in her hand. I fled the house in terror. It was only the next day, from the papers, that I learned of the murder. All night, I had been happy, thinking my letter was back. I had no idea what was to come. Only in the morning did I realize I had escaped one trouble only to cause a far greater one. My husband's despair broke my heart. I wanted to fall at his feet and confess, but I could not admit to this sin without confessing the first. So I went to you. I wanted to understand the depth of my crime. And when I realized the danger, I knew I had to get the letter back. I guessed it was still where Lucas had hidden it. It was my only luck that his wife had arrived at that exact moment. Otherwise, he would have moved it. For 2 days, I watched the house, waiting for an opening. Last night, I made my final attempt. You know the rest. I brought the letter home, but I did not know how to return it without a confession. My God, I hear his steps on the stairs. The foreign secretary rushed into the room, his face etched with anxiety. Well, Mr. Holmes, do you have news? He cried. I have some hopes, Holmes replied calmly. Ah, thank God. The minister's face lit up instantly. The Prime Minister is lunching with me today. I am glad he may share in this hope. He has nerves of steel, but I know he has not slept a wink these past few days. Jacobs, ask the Prime Minister to step this way. As for you, my dear, he said to Lady Hilda, these political matters can hardly interest you. We shall join you in the dining room in a few minutes. The Prime Minister entered. He was composed, but the glint in his eyes and the nervous twitching of his gaunt hands showed that he was no less agitated than his younger colleague. Am I to understand, Mr. Holmes, that you have something to tell us? My news is of a somewhat negative character, Holmes replied. I have made inquiries everywhere, and I am now convinced that you have nothing to fear. But that is not enough, Mr. Holmes. We are living on a volcano. We require something more definite. I hope to find that letter, said Holmes. In fact, I have come here for that purpose. The more I think over the matter, the more convinced I am that the letter has never left this house. Mr. Holmes, why should you be surprised? If it had left this house, it would have been made public long ago. But why would a thief hide the letter in the very house from which he stole it? Because I'm convinced there was no thief. The letter was never stolen. Then how did it vanish from the dispatch box? I am convinced, Holmes said firmly, that it never vanished from the box at all. Mr. Holmes, this is a poor subject for a jest. I told you myself the letter is not in the box. Have you looked in the box since Tuesday? No, there was no need. Then you have simply overlooked it. That is impossible. I'm not so sure. Such things happen. The box is full of papers. The letter may have slipped between them, but it was on the very top. That means nothing. The box might have been shaken, and the papers shifted. I assure you, I examined every paper with the greatest care. This dispute is easily settled, the Prime Minister remarked. Have the box brought in. The Foreign Secretary rang the bell. Jacobs, bring the dispatch box. Forgive me, Holmes. I find this suggestion ridiculous, but I shall satisfy you. Thank you, Jacobs. Put on the table. The key is always on my watch chain. Here are the papers. See? Here is the letter from Lord Marrow. Here is Sir Charles Hardy's report, a memorandum from Belgrade, a note on the Russo-German treaty, a letter from Madrid, one from Lord Flowers. My God, what is this? Lord Bellinger. Lord Bellinger. The Prime Minister snatched the letter from his hand. Yes, this is it. The letter is intact. Hope, I congratulate you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. What a weight is lifted from my heart. But this is staggering. Mr. Holmes, you are a wizard, a sorcerer. How did you know the letter was here? I knew, Holmes replied with a faint smile, that it could be nowhere else. I can hardly believe my own eyes. The Foreign Secretary hurried from the room, calling out, Where is my wife? I must tell her all as well. Hilda, Hilda. The Prime Minister looked at Holmes, his sharp eyes glinting. Now, sir, he said, I don't believe a word of that. Tell me, how did that letter find its way back into the box? Holmes turned away, smiling to avoid the piercing gaze of those extraordinary eyes. We, too, have our diplomatic secrets, sir, he said. He took up his hat and walked toward the door. I followed him out.